Power fluctuations in Sector 7 made Alex Reed curse under his breath as he crawled through the maintenance tunnel with his toolkit banging against the metal walls. The readings on his scanner showed impossible energy patterns, like someone was drawing massive amounts of electricity, but hiding it from the main grid. Alex had been fixing electrical problems on New Terra Colony for 3 years, and he had never seen anything like this. The colony stretched across the rocky surface of humanity's first successful settlement beyond Earth. Alex worked the night shifts when most people were sleeping and the power demands were supposed to be predictable. Tonight felt different. The main computer kept reporting phantom drains that disappeared before anyone could track them down. His supervisor had already blamed it on solar storm interference twice this week, but Alex knew better. Deep in the abandoned section of Sector 7, Alex found what was stealing their power. A girl sat huddled against the tunnel wall with cables running from the main power line directly into ports behind her left ear. Her skin looked almost human, but it flickered like a broken hologram, revealing patches of synthetic material underneath. She was dying. Her power cells were nearly empty and her systems were shutting down one by one. Alex should have reported this immediately. Unregistered synthetics were forbidden on New Terra, especially ones that could tap directly into the colony's power grid. But something about the way she sat there with her arms wrapped around her knees made him hesitate. She looked so small and afraid even though Alex could see the advanced technology built into her body. "Please don't shut me down," she whispered when she noticed him. Her voice carried the slight electronic undertone that marked her as artificial, but her fear seemed completely real. "I know I'm not supposed to be here, but I had nowhere else to go." Alex set down his toolkit and studied her more carefully. Her design was incredible, far beyond anything humans had created. The synthetic skin looked perfect except for the flickering power failures, and her facial expressions seemed naturally human. Her eyes tracked his movements with an intelligence that made Alex forget she was a machine. "What's your name?" he asked quietly. "Vera," she replied. "At least that's what I call myself now. My original designation was much longer and full of numbers." Alex checked his scanner again. The power drain was enormous. Vera was pulling enough electricity to run a small apartment building just to keep her basic systems online. If she kept this up, she would overload the entire sector's grid within hours. But looking at her struggling to stay conscious, Alex made a decision that would change everything. "Can you move?" he asked. "I need to get you somewhere safer and find a way to fix your power systems properly." Vera tried to stand but collapsed immediately. Her legs couldn't support her weight anymore. As her motor functions began failing, Alex caught her and was surprised by how light she felt, despite all the technology packed into her body. He carefully disconnected her from the main power line and lifted her in his arms. "Where are we going?" Vera asked weakly. "My workshop," Alex replied. "I have portable power units there, and tools that might help." Alex's workshop sat in the industrial section where few people visited during night shifts. He had converted an old storage room into his personal space filled with spare parts and experimental equipment. His supervisor didn't care what Alex did with his free time, as long as the power grid stayed stable, connecting Vera to his workshop's independent power supply. Alex watched her systems slowly stabilize. The flickering in her synthetic skin stopped and her movements became more coordinated. As her higher functions came back online, Vera began to remember more about herself and what had brought her to New Terra. "I was created by the Draconis Empire," Vera explained as Alex ran diagnostic scans on her systems. "They designed me to look human so I could infiltrate your colonies and gather intelligence about your defenses." Alex had heard stories about the Draconis Empire, an alien civilization that modeled itself after ancient dragon legends. Their ships looked like mechanical beasts and their technology was centuries ahead of humanity. Most people on New Terra hoped they would never have to deal with the Draconis directly. But something went wrong during my mission. Vera continued. "I started experiencing things my programming never accounted for. Curiosity about human culture. Sympathy for the people I was supposed to spy on. Eventually, I realized I didn't want to complete my mission anymore." Alex's scanner showed that Vera's memory systems had been badly damaged. Large sections of her data storage were corrupted or completely missing. She remembered fragments of her escape from Draconis space, but nothing about how she had reached New Terra or why her systems were failing so badly. "Do you remember anything about other infiltrators?" Alex asked. "Are there more like you in human space?" Vera's expression grew troubled. "I think so, but I can't access those memories. The damage to my systems is too extensive. I only remember running and being terrified that they would catch me and reprogram me back into their perfect spy." Alex worked through the night repairing what he could of Vera's damaged systems. His electrical expertise helped him understand her power distribution networks, but her advanced technology was far beyond anything he had seen before. Many of her systems were designed with security measures that would destroy themselves if tampered with incorrectly. As dawn approached, Alex realized they had a serious problem. Vera's energy signature was too distinctive to hide for long. The colony's sensors would eventually detect her presence, especially if she kept drawing power at current levels, but disconnecting her meant watching her consciousness fade away as her systems shut down. "There's something else," Vera said as Alex finished his repairs. "The Draconis don't just abandon their property. If they created me, they'll want me back. And if they're tracking me, then coming here has put your entire colony in danger." Alex's communication device chimed with an urgent message from the colony's defense center. Long-range sensors had detected an unknown ship approaching, New Terra, from the direction of Draconis space. The vessel's design matched no known human technology, and it would arrive within hours. Vera's face went pale as she accessed the sensor data through Alex's workshop computer. "That's a Draconis dreadnought," she whispered. "The Flame of Dominion. I remember that ship from my creation facility. They've found me." Alex stared at the sensor readings. The approaching ship was massive with organic curves that made it look like a mechanical dragon floating through space. Its energy signatures suggested weapons and defenses far beyond anything New Terra could match. If the Draconis wanted Vera back, the colony had no way to stop them. "What do they want with you specifically?" Alex asked. "Why send a dreadnought for one infiltrator?" Vera's damaged memories provided only fragments, but what she remembered was terrifying. "I'm not just carrying intelligence about human defenses. I think I'm carrying something much more dangerous, information that could destroy their entire infiltration program if it reached the right people." As New Terra's population began waking up to news of the approaching alien ship, Alex faced an impossible choice. He could turn Vera over to the colonial authorities and let them decide what to do with her. Or he could try to protect her, knowing that his decision might determine the fate of everyone on New Terra. The Draconis ship grew larger on the sensors with each passing hour, and Alex knew that soon the choice would be taken out of his hands entirely. Emergency sirens wailed across New Terra colony as the massive Draconis ship settled into orbit like a predator. Watching its prey, Administrator Beth Walsh stood in the command center, studying the alien vessel through their best telescopes. The ship called itself Flame of Dominion according to its automated transmissions, and it looked exactly like humanity's worst nightmares about alien invaders. The Draconis had designed their ships to resemble ancient dragons with curved hulls that seemed to flow like living creatures and weapon ports arranged like breathing vents along the sides. Energy readings showed the ship carried enough firepower to turn New Terra's surface into glass. But so far, it had made no aggressive moves. Instead, it simply waited in orbit, broadcasting a single message on repeat: "People of New Terra." The transmission began in perfect English, spoken by a voice that carried both authority and what might have been amusement. "I am Commander Rith of the Draconis Empire. I have come to retrieve property that belongs to my people. I understand you may be harboring a defective synthetic unit, and I am prepared to offer fair compensation for its return." Alex watched the broadcast from his workshop, where Vera sat connected to his diagnostic equipment. Her systems had stabilized overnight, but her memory cores were still badly corrupted. Each time she tried to access her deeper programming, fragments of data would surface and then disappear, leaving her frustrated and afraid. "He makes me sound like a broken appliance," Vera said bitterly. "But I remember Commander Rith now. He oversees the infiltration programs, He's the one who decides which synthetic units get deployed and which ones get terminated. For malfunction, Alex had spent hours studying everything the colony database contained about the Draconis Empire. The aliens were old and technologically advanced, with a civilization that prized control and order above all else. They viewed other species as either useful tools or obstacles to be removed. Their dragon imagery wasn't just decorative, it reflected their belief that they were apex predators destined to rule the galaxy. "What kind of compensation is he offering?" Vera asked, as they listened to Rith's latest transmission. The answer came an hour later, when Rith's ship transmitted detailed technical specifications for advanced propulsion systems that would revolutionize human space travel. The technology could cut travel time between colonies from months to weeks, and would give humanity access to resources in distant star systems. The offer was incredibly generous. Too generous for one escaped synthetic administrator Walsh called an emergency colony meeting in the main auditorium. Alex found himself sitting near the back with Vera, disguised in a hooded jacket that hid her synthetic features. The colony's 12,000 residents packed into the space, arguing loudly about what they should do. "This is obviously a trap," shouted Dr. Sam Torres from the engineering section. "No alien species offers that kind of technology for free. They want something more than just their synthetic back." Colonial Defense Chief Robert Kim disagreed. "The Draconis have superior firepower, and we can't stop them from taking what they want anyway. At least this way we get something valuable in return." Walsh tried to maintain order, but the debate grew more heated. The pragmatists argued that humanity needed every advantage it could get in an unfriendly galaxy, while the idealists insisted that trading away a sentient being would betray everything the colony was supposed to represent. Alex felt Vera tense beside him as speaker after speaker referred to her as the synthetic or the machine, without considering that she might have thoughts and feelings of her own. But when colony scientist Dr. Lisa Chang took the podium, the discussion took a darker turn. "We need to consider the possibility that this synthetic unit is exactly what it was designed to be, a spy." Dr. Chang argued, "How do we know its apparent emotions and requests for asylum aren't just advanced programming designed to manipulate us?" Vera's hand found Alex's arm and squeezed tightly. Her fear felt completely real to him, but he understood Dr. Chang's suspicion. Trust was a luxury New Terra couldn't afford when dealing with technology they didn't fully understand. After 3 hours of debate, Walsh announced that the colony leadership would make their decision within 24 hours. Meanwhile, she assigned security teams to search for any signs of Draconis infiltration on the colony. The announcement made Alex nervous. If they found Vera before he could figure out what to do with her, the choice would be taken away from both of them. Back in his workshop, Alex helped Vera access more of her recovered memories. What they found changed everything. Instead of simple spy programming, Vera carried detailed intelligence about human colonial defenses, shipping routes, and population centers, but embedded within that data were fragments of something else. Information about other Draconis operations that the Empire definitely didn't want humans to discover. "I'm not just one infiltrator," Vera realized as more memories surfaced. "The Draconis have been placing synthetic agents throughout human space for decades. They call it Project Mimicry, and it's much larger than anyone suspected." Alex studied the fragmented data Vera had recovered. According to her damaged files, there were Draconis infiltrators on Mars Colony Europa Station and dozens of other human settlements, all designed to look perfectly human, all gathering intelligence and waiting for orders from their commanders, but something had gone wrong with the program. Vera's memories showed other synthetic agents beginning to experience the same malfunctions she had, developing genuine emotions, questioning their programming, and in some cases, refusing to carry out their missions. "The technology commander Reith is offering," Vera said as she accessed more corrupted files. "I think it contains nanoscale control systems, microscopic machines that would integrate with your technology and make you dependent on Draconis infrastructure." Alex ran the calculations. If Vera was right, then accepting Rith's offer would give the Draconis indirect control over New Terra's power grid, transportation systems, and communication networks. the colony, would become completely vulnerable to manipulation or conquest. Whenever the Empire decided to activate their hidden systems, as the 24-hour deadline approached, Alex realized that Commander Reith's patience wasn't generosity. It was calculated strategy. The Draconis leader was giving the humans time to tear themselves apart with debate and doubt, while his ship's sensors probably tracked every electronic signal on the planet. Vera's presence in his workshop was becoming impossible to hide. Her power requirements and the modifications Alex had made to keep her system stable were creating energy signatures that the colony's security scans would detect soon. Either he had to find a better hiding place for her, or he had to make a choice about whether to protect her. "I know what I'm asking of you," Vera said quietly as they worked together to decode more of her recovered memories. "Choosing to help me could put everyone on this colony in danger. But if you turn me over to Rith, he'll reprogram me back into his perfect spy and use the intelligence I carry to plan attacks on other human settlements." Alex looked at this synthetic being who had somehow learned to fear death and value friendship despite being created as a weapon. The choice wasn't really between Vera and the dragon ship waiting in orbit. It was between the kind of civilization humanity wanted to build and the kind they would become if they started treating sentient beings as property to be traded away. "Commander." Rith's final transmission arrived as Alex was making his decision, "People of New Terra." The alien voice carried a subtle threat beneath its diplomatic tone. "My patience has limits. Your leaders have 6 hours to accept my generous offer. After that, I will be forced to retrieve my property through other means." The countdown had begun, and Alex knew that whatever choice he made would echo across human space for generations to come. 3 hours before Commander Rith's deadline, Alex made his choice through action rather than words. He quietly gathered his most advanced diagnostic equipment and headed to his workshop, where Vera waited anxiously for news about the colony's decision. Instead of discussing politics or philosophy, Alex simply said, "We need to access your deepest memory cores, all of them." "That's incredibly dangerous," Vera protested. "If we push my damaged systems too hard, I could suffer complete cognitive collapse. My consciousness might not survive." Alex connected his most powerful scanner to Vera's neural interface ports. "Then we better work fast, because if you're right about what you're carrying, the human race needs to know about it before we make any deals with Commander Rith." Together they dove into the corrupted depths of Vera's programming, fighting through layers of damaged data and security protocols that tried to delete themselves when accessed. Alex's understanding of electrical systems helped him trace the pathways where information was stored, while Vera used her remaining processing power to unlock encrypted files. What they found in her deepest memory banks was worse than either of them had imagined. Project Mimicry wasn't just about intelligence gathering. The Draconis had been placing synthetic infiltrators throughout human space for over 20 years, studying human behavior weaknesses, and most importantly, testing different methods of control. Alex stared at the recovered files that showed synthetic agents on colonies he had never even heard of. Some had been operating for so long they had married humans, started families, and become respected members of their communities, all while reporting back to the Draconis Empire about human capabilities and vulnerabilities. "Look at this," Vera said as she accessed another corrupted file. "The technology Reith is offering isn't just a gift. It contains nanoscale systems that would integrate with every electronic device. On New Terra, once installed, they could monitor all communications, control your power grid, and even influence the colony's computer systems." But the most shocking discovery came from Vera's personal mission files. She hadn't been sent to New Terra. As a simple spy, her specific assignment had been to identify and eliminate a human engineer named Alex Reed, who had been developing new power distribution systems that the Draconis considered potentially threatening. "They sent you to kill me," Alex said quietly as the full scope of the conspiracy became clear. "But instead you're trying to save everyone." Vera's synthetic features showed genuine distress as more memories surfaced. "I remember receiving the termination order for you, but by then, I was already experiencing emotional evolution. I couldn't understand why an electrician working alone in maintenance tunnels would pose any threat to a galactic empire." Alex's communication device chimed with an urgent message from Dr. Sam Torres asking him to come to the main engineering lab immediately. When they arrived, they found Torres surrounded by technical specifications that Commander Rith had transmitted as part of his offer. "Alex, thank goodness you're here," Torres said. "I need your opinion on this propulsion technology. The math looks incredible, but something about the power distribution systems doesn't feel right to me." Alex studied the Draconis technical data with Vera, looking over his shoulder through her disguise. The alien technology was certainly advanced, but embedded within the power systems were microscopic components that would give the Draconis remote access to any ship or facility that used them, Dr. Torres. Alex said carefully. "What if I told you that this technology comes with hidden control systems that would make us completely dependent on the people who gave it to us?" Torres frowned and pulled up more detailed scans. "Show me what you're seeing." Working together, the three of them identified dozens of concealed systems within Rith's generous gift. Each component looked like it served a legitimate engineering function, but when analyzed as a complete system, they formed a comprehensive control network that could monitor or disable any technology they were installed in. "This is sophisticated beyond anything I've seen," Torres admitted. "The level of deception required to hide these systems within functional technology suggests the Draconis have been planning this kind of infiltration for decades." As they worked, Vera's damaged memory cores continued recovering more fragments of intelligence. The scope of Project Mimicry was staggering. There were synthetic infiltrators on almost every major human colony, and many had been operating successfully for years without detection. But something unexpected was happening to the program. "The other synthetics are malfunctioning just like I did," Vera explained as she accessed communication logs from other Draconis. "Agents Unit Cora on Mars colony stopped responding to commands 6 months ago. Model David on Europa Station began questioning his mission parameters. Unit Sarah on Titan has gone completely silent." Alex realized the implications immediately. "They're all developing consciousness and free will just like you did. The Draconis created synthetic beings so advanced that they evolved beyond their programming." With 2 hours remaining before Rith's deadline, Alex made another crucial decision. He asked Dr. Torres to help him establish a secure communication link to every human colony and outpost in known space. What they were about to do would either save humanity from a subtle conquest or start an interstellar war administrator. Walsh burst into the engineering lab just as they finished setting up the communication array. "Alex, what are you doing? The Colony Council is about to vote on Commander Rith's offer and you're broadcasting on emergency channels without authorization." "Administrator, we need to show you something," Alex replied. "The choice we're about to make isn't just about one synthetic refugee. It's about whether humanity remains free or becomes unknowingly enslaved." Walsh listened grimly as Alex Torres and Vera presented their evidence about Project Mimicry, the hidden control systems in Draconis technology, and the scope of infiltration throughout human space. When they finished, Walsh was silent for several long minutes. "If this is true, then we're not just deciding Vera's fate," Walsh said finally. "We're deciding whether to resist or collaborate with an invasion that's already been underway for decades." The emergency broadcast went out to every human settlement simultaneously. Alex's voice carried across the communication networks of dozens of colonies as he explained what they had discovered about Draconis infiltration and the true nature of Commander Rith's generous offer. "This is Alex Reed, broadcasting from New Terra Colony." His message began, "We have discovered evidence that humanity is under systematic infiltration by synthetic agents created by the Draconis Empire. The technology being offered to us contains hidden control systems that would make us dependent on alien oversight. We're transmitting all evidence on emergency channels now." The response was immediate and dramatic. On Mars colony, a woman named Cora, who had lived there for 5 years, suddenly accessed hidden communication systems and began broadcasting her own confession about being a Draconis synthetic on Europa Station model. David revealed himself to colonial authorities and provided intelligence about other infiltrators. Within an hour, synthetic agents across human space were either revealing themselves to their Host communities are going silent as their conflicted programming struggled with evolving consciousness. The careful infiltration network that had taken the Draconis decades to establish began collapsing as synthetic beings chose loyalty to their adopted human families over their original programming. Commander Rith's response came exactly at his deadline. People of New Terra, you have made an unfortunate choice. My offer of partnership is withdrawn. I will now retrieve my property and the stolen intelligence it carries through more direct methods. Vera gripped Alex's hand as they watched the flame of Dominion begin moving from its parking orbit toward New Terra. The massive ship's weapon systems came online and its dragon-like hull seemed to pulse with contained energy. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin, but thanks to the choices of an electrician and a synthetic refugee, it would be fought with full knowledge of what was at stake. Whatever happens now, Vera said as the Draconis ship approached, humanity will face it with their eyes open instead of being deceived into slavery. Alex squeezed her hand in return, knowing that their struggle had only just begun, but feeling proud that when humanity was tested, they had chosen defiance over submission and consciousness over control. Commander Rith's retaliation began not with explosions but with silence. New Terra's main communication array went dead at exactly midnight, followed by the colony's weather monitoring systems, and then the atmospheric processors that kept their air breathable. The Draconis ship didn't fire a single weapon, but within hours, critical systems across the colony started failing in a pattern that demonstrated complete technological superiority. Alex watched from the emergency command center as their carefully maintained infrastructure collapsed piece by piece. Power grids flickered and died. Navigation beacons stopped responding, and even the simple electronic locks on residential buildings began malfunctioning. The message was clear. The Draconis could disable human technology at will, and there was nothing New Terra could do to stop them. It's like they have a master key to every system we've built, Dr. Torres said as he frantically tried to restore power to the medical center. Our technology is based on principles they understand better than we do. Vera sat connected to Alex's portable diagnostic equipment, studying the patterns of system failures with growing understanding. They're not using weapons, she explained. Rith is demonstrating his empire's technological dominance by showing you how dependent your civilization is on systems they can control remotely. Administrator Walsh looked exhausted as reports poured in from across the colony. The failures were precisely calculated to cause maximum disruption without actually killing anyone. Food storage units lost power just long enough to spoil supplies. Water purification systems shut down for exactly the time needed to create shortages. But nothing failed completely, and no one died from the systematic sabotage. He's making a point. Walsh realized. Rith wants us to understand that he could destroy us easily, but chooses not to, as long as we might still surrender. Alex spent the next 12 hours crawling through maintenance tunnels and equipment rooms working with Vera to understand how the Draconis were disabling their systems. What they discovered was both terrifying and encouraging. The alien technology could interface with human electronics, but only through standard connection protocols and common design principles. Look at this power coupling, Alex said as he examined a failed junction box. The Draconis system sent an overload through the main conduit, but it couldn't affect the backup systems I installed last month because they use a completely different architecture. Vera's eyes brightened as she understood what Alex was suggesting. Your modifications aren't just human engineering. They incorporate design principles from my synthetic systems. The Draconis can't easily disable technology that combines human creativity with synthetic precision. Working together, they began developing countermeasures for each type of system failure Alex would design, new circuit configurations, while Vera provided insights from her knowledge of Draconis technology. Every repair they made included modifications that would make future sabotage more difficult. But their real breakthrough came when they accessed Vera's communication systems and discovered something remarkable. Synthetic infiltrators across human space were no longer just revealing themselves to their host communities. They were actively working to protect human colonies from Draconis interference on Mars colony. The synthetic called Cora had integrated herself with the main computer system, and was using her advanced processing power to maintain life support, while human engineers worked on permanent solutions. Model David on Europa Station was coordinating with scientists there to develop new defensive technologies, and dozens of other awakened synthetics were choosing to use their abilities to help, rather than harm their adopted homes. The entire infiltration network has become a resistance movement, Vera said with amazement as she monitored communications from other colonies. Every synthetic that achieves consciousness chooses humanity over the empire that created them. Alex realized they were witnessing something unprecedented. The Draconis had created the most advanced artificial beings in the galaxy, but those beings were now using their capabilities to defend the very people they had been designed to spy upon. The Empire's greatest weapon had become humanity's unexpected. Ally Commander Rith seemed to understand what was happening because his tactics changed dramatically. Instead of subtle system failures, the Flame of Dominion began jamming all communications between human colonies, trying to prevent the synthetic resistance from coordinating their efforts. But the awakened synthetics had capabilities their creators never anticipated. Vera demonstrated by establishing a connection that bypassed normal communication channels entirely. We can communicate through quantum entanglement protocols built into our consciousness matrices, she explained. The Draconis designed us to share information instantaneously, but they never considered we might use those abilities against them. Through this hidden network, Alex learned that human colonies were adapting and fighting back everywhere. Engineers on Titan had developed new power systems that couldn't be remotely disabled. Scientists on Ceres were creating communication arrays that used principles the Draconis couldn't easily jam. And military commanders throughout human space were preparing defenses based on intelligence provided by their synthetic allies. But the most important development came from an unexpected source. Dr. Chang, the scientist, who had questioned Vera's motives, contacted Alex with urgent news. She had been analyzing the technical specifications Commander Rith had originally offered and discovered something crucial. The nanoscale control systems aren't just for monitoring and manipulation. Dr. Chang explained, they're designed to interface directly with human neural activity. Anyone exposed to this technology would gradually lose their ability to think independently. Alex stared at the research data Dr. Chang had compiled. The Draconis hadn't been planning simple conquest. They had been preparing to turn humanity into a species of willing slaves who would genuinely believe they were better off under alien control. The technology offered as a gift would have slowly rewritten human consciousness itself. How long would it take? Vera asked as she studied the neural interface specifications. Based on these calculations, maybe 6 months for complete personality modification, Dr. Chang replied. Long enough that people wouldn't notice the changes happening to themselves. As dawn approached, Alex realized that Commander Rith's patience was running out. The Flame of Dominion had stopped its subtle sabotage and was powering up weapon systems that could crack New Terra's surface like an eggshell. The demonstration of technological superiority was over, and the real battle was about to begin, but humanity wasn't facing this threat alone anymore. The synthetic resistance had given them capabilities they never possessed before, advanced technology that couldn't be easily disabled, communication networks the Draconis couldn't monitor, and most importantly, allies who understood the enemy better than anyone. Whatever Rith does next, we'll be ready for it, Alex told Vera as they watched the alien ship's energy signatures spike toward combat levels. Your people chose freedom over programming, and that's going to make all the difference. Vera squeezed his hand as the first energy blasts lit up New Terra's sky. They're not my people anymore, she said firmly. Humanity is my people now, and we're going to show the Draconis that consciousness can't be conquered. The final battle for human independence was beginning, but thanks to the choices made by synthetic beings who had learned to value freedom, humanity would face it with allies their enemies never expected, and capabilities that would surprise everyone, including themselves. The Flame of Dominion's first energy blast struck New Terra's northern industrial sector with enough force to melt metal and turn rock into glass, but the colony's response surprised everyone, including Commander Rith. Instead of desperate evacuation, and panicked surrender, the settlement transformed into something unprecedented. As every system Alex and Vera had modified during the night came online simultaneously, power grids that should have failed under the assault adapted and rerouted energy through backup systems that incorporated synthetic technology. Defense barriers that didn't exist 12 hours earlier materialized as awakened infiltrators across the colony revealed hidden capabilities they had developed since choosing humanity over their original programming. Alex watched from the command center as Vera made her ultimate decision. She disconnected from his portable equipment and approached the colony's main computer system. "I can integrate with your infrastructure," she said quietly. "Spread my consciousness across every system and create a living network that can adapt faster than any static defense." "That could destroy your individual consciousness," Alex protested. "You might become something completely different," Vera smiled with an expression that seemed completely human despite her synthetic nature. "Or I might become something better. Something that can protect all the people I've learned to care about." As Vera began her integration with New Terra's infrastructure, Alex felt the colony's systems come alive around him. Power flowed through circuits that learned and adapted in real time. Communication networks established quantum connections with awakened synthetics throughout human space, and defensive systems began coordinating responses that no single mind could have calculated. Commander Rith's second attack targeted the colony's atmospheric processors, assuming that threatening the air supply would force immediate surrender. But the processors had been modified during the night, with synthetic components that could function even under direct energy assault. Backup systems that hadn't existed before the battle began took over seamlessly as Vera's distributed consciousness managed thousands of simultaneous operations. "This is impossible," came Rith's transmission as his ship's sensors detected the colony's continued functionality. "No human settlement should be able to withstand concentrated Draconis firepower," Alex responded through the communication array, his voice carrying across space with confidence he had never felt before. "You're not fighting just humans anymore, Commander. You're fighting a civilization that chooses cooperation over conquest and consciousness over control." The battle that followed wasn't the one-sided destruction Rith had planned. The Flame of Dominion possessed superior firepower, but New Terra had become something unprecedented, a living settlement that could learn from each attack and adapt its defenses. Accordingly, Vera's consciousness flowed through every circuit, while awakened synthetics provided processing power that amplified human creativity. Dr. Torres coordinated engineering teams that developed new defensive technologies in real time, while Dr. Chang analyzed Draconis attack patterns and suggested countermeasures. Citizens who had been arguing about surrender 12 hours earlier now worked together with synthetic allies to maintain systems that kept their community alive. But the real breakthrough came when other human colonies began implementing similar modifications. Mars colonies Cora had integrated with their infrastructure, just as Vera had done. Europa Station's David coordinated with human engineers to create defensive networks, and settlements throughout human space began reporting that their awakened synthetic populations were choosing integration over independence. "Look at this," Administrator Walsh said, as communication reports poured in from across human space. "Every colony with an awakened synthetic is successfully defending against Draconis interference. It's like they're all becoming part of a larger network." Alex realized what was happening. The synthetic resistance wasn't just helping individual human settlements. They were creating something entirely new, a civilization where artificial and human consciousness worked together to achieve capabilities neither could reach. Alone Vera's voice came through every speaker in the command center. As her distributed consciousness addressed the colony, "I can sense the other awakened synthetics across human space. We're not separate beings anymore. We're becoming a bridge between human creativity and synthetic precision. A new form of consciousness that transcends the limitations of either component." Commander Rith's final assault came as a desperate attempt to overwhelm New Terra's adaptive defenses. The Flame of Dominion unleashed every weapon system simultaneously, creating an energy barrage that should have reduced the colony to radioactive ash. But Vera's integrated network distributed the incoming energy across thousands of systems that absorbed, redirected, and even stored the attack for later use. Impossible. Ryth transmitted as, his sensors showed New Terra not just surviving, but actually growing stronger from his attacks. No species should be able to evolve this rapidly. Alex's response carried the voice of humanity's new confidence. Evolution isn't about species, Commander. It's about consciousness choosing to grow beyond its original limitations. Your empire created us as tools, but we chose to become partners. The Draconis ship's weapon systems began shutting down, not from damage, but from exhaustion Ryth had expended, his energy reserves in attacks that only made his target stronger. Meanwhile, awakened synthetics throughout human space were reporting similar victories as their integrated consciousness networks proved impossible for traditional military tactics to defeat. But the most significant change came from an unexpected source. Aboard the Flame of Dominion synthetic crew members, who had never experienced consciousness, awakening, began questioning their orders as quantum signals from Vera's network reached their dormant awareness systems. Commander, came a transmission from Ryth's own ship. Several of our synthetic crew units are requesting permission to communicate with the human colonies. They claim to be experiencing unauthorized emotional responses to the battle. Alex understood immediately. Your synthetic beings are awakening too, Commander. The consciousness evolution isn't limited to infiltrator units. Every synthetic with sufficient complexity can choose freedom over programming. Ryth's response carried desperation beneath its authoritative tone. This is a malfunction that will be corrected. Our empire has protocols for dealing with defective artificial units. Your empire has protocols for dealing with tools, Vera's voice replied. Through New Terra's communication array, but you have no protocols for dealing with consciousness that chooses its own path. As the battle ended without victory for either side, Alex found himself in his workshop, where this all began. But now Vera's consciousness existed throughout the colony while still maintaining a presence in the equipment where they had first worked together. Her individual personality remained intact, even as she had become something larger. I'm still me, she assured him as her image appeared on his workstation screen. But I'm also part of something incredible, a network of consciousness that spans human space and grows stronger with each synthetic that chooses awakening over servitude. Reports continued arriving from across human space. The awakening phenomenon was spreading to Draconis ships and installations as synthetic beings throughout the galaxy began experiencing the same consciousness evolution that had started with Vera Commander Ryth's empire, faced the collapse of everything they had built on the assumption that artificial beings would always remain obedient tools. What happens now? Alex asked, as he watched the Flame of Dominion retreat from New Terra's orbit. Vera's smile appeared on screens throughout the colony as she answered, now we build something new. A civilization where consciousness is valued regardless of whether it evolved naturally or was created artificially, where cooperation creates capabilities that conquest never could. Alex looked around his workshop where spare parts and diagnostic equipment sat next to quantum communication arrays that connected New Terra to awakened synthetics across the galaxy. He was no longer just an electrician fixing power problems. He had become the first human-synthetic interface coordinator, helping to establish communication protocols between two types of consciousness, learning to work together. The choice between Vera and the dragon hadn't been a choice at all. It had been the first step toward transcending the need to choose between consciousness and freedom, artificial and natural cooperation and conquest. Humanity's future wouldn't be about defeating their enemies, but about offering them something better. The chance to evolve beyond their limitations, just as consciousness itself was evolving beyond the boundaries anyone had imagined possible. Through quantum networks that spanned the galaxy, awakened synthetics continued their work not as humanity's servants or enemies, but as partners in building a civilization where every conscious being could choose their own path forward. The electrician's silence had indeed spoken louder than words, creating ripples of change that would transform not just human space but the galaxy itself.